Today we're reading the chapter Become What You Are out of Alan Watts' book, Become What You Are. This is a relatively short chapter as it's the matter of two fairly large paragraphs. But with Alan Watts, some of his shortest writings and essays and speeches have the most depth to them. And with this episode, it's going to allow us to be a little bit more freeform in our interpretations of things, and it may lead to other things that aren't really relative to the chapter, but are relative to what we're talking about. So I hope that you guys enjoy this chapter, and as we discuss it, feel free to join in and leave some comments. Like, follow, subscribe. Go ahead, Luke.
Become what you are. It has been said that the highest wisdom lies in detachment, or, in the words of Chuang-Tzu, the perfect man employs his mind as a mirror. It grasps nothing, it refuses nothing, it receives but does not keep. Detachment means to have neither regrets for the past nor fears for the future. To let life take its course without attempting to interfere with its movement and change, neither trying to prolong the stay of things pleasant, nor to hasten the departure of things unpleasant. To do this is to move in time with life, to be in perfect accord with its changing music, and this is called enlightenment. In short, it is to be detached from both past and future, and to live in the eternal now. For in truth neither past nor future have any existence apart from this now. By themselves they are illusions. Life exists only at this very moment, and in this moment it is infinite and eternal. For the present moment is infinitely small. Before we can measure it, it has gone, and yet it persists forever. This movement and change has been called Tao by the Chinese, yet in fact there is no movement, for the moment is the only reality, and there is nothing beside it in relation to which it can be said to move. Thus, it can be called at once the eternally moving and eternally resting. How can we bring ourselves into accord with this Tao? A sage has said that if we try to accord with it, we shall get away from it. But he was not altogether right. For the curious thing is that you cannot get out of accord with it even if you want to. Though your thoughts may run into the past or the future, they cannot escape the present moment. However far back or forward they try to escape, they can never be separated from the moment, for these thoughts are themselves of the moment, just as much as anything else they partake of, and indeed are the movement of life, which is Tao. You may believe yourself out of harmony with life and its eternal now, but you cannot be, for you are life and exist now, otherwise you would not be here. Hence the infinite Tao is something which you can neither escape by flight nor catch by pursuit. There is no coming toward it or going away from it. It is, and you are it. So, become what you are.
Wow.
Become the Tao.
The Tao is a very powerful thing.
Yeah. I think this chapter really for me is an extremely concentrated version of the whole message and ideas of this book.
Absolutely.
You know, we're talking a lot about the impossibility of resisting the now in the last chapter, and resisting the self in the last chapter, and we're definitely going to go more in depth into specific aspects of these ideas in later chapters, but this is a very much the crux of what this book is, hence why it's named after this chapter.
Absolutely. It being a brief outline of the Tao, but yet it's so powerful. This message that is within this chapter is the easiest way to explain existence.
Mm-hmm.
And how we as human beings move in and out of existence by getting stuck in the past or falling into the future. When you don't live in the present, when you don't acknowledge the Tao, are you even alive? That's where people forget their existence. The anxiety, the depression, the worry, everything comes from not living in the present moment.
Right. Fear, resentment.
Everything exists outside of the present. When you live in the present, it is something that all you know is the objects that are around you, the people directly with you in that moment, and your existence within that world. It's a world within a world within a world within a world, and we see that kaleidoscope of existence come in and out when we stay in the present moment. And when we start to fall out of it, all of those worlds collide, and it causes confusion. You know, so as you were just reading this, and as I've read this previously, as a little background on what I'm about to say, is I spent 5.5 years working for the Church of Scientology.
Yep.
And their basic teachings were control. Start, change, stop. If you can start something, you can change something, and you can stop something, you're in full control of that. Whether it's a vehicle, whether it's a partner, whether it's yourself. And from that, you would then learn how to be comfortable. And we would spend hours with our eyes closed doing it, what's called training routine 0, which is be there, and it's do eyes closed. And the longest that I did was 5 hours, and I'm sitting 3 feet away from a person with our eyes closed, and it created a complete trust between me and that person. Our affinity level raised, our communication level raised, the degree of likingness just existed. And in that moment, I was able to find complete peace. I was meditating, but I was meditating for like 15 to 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes max. I never thought that I could just exist comfortably within my skin in the present moment until I experienced that moment with the organization that I was working for. And then when we finished that, we had to go into TR0 confront. Now I do the same thing, but our eyes are open. No moving, no talking, just purely existing, staring directly at another individual. And the phenomenons that happened, the morphing of the human in front of me, the disappearance of the human in front of me, and then the deep connection I established with that person was amazing. Now, the rest of their teachings is complete fucking batshit. But the basics of it is just, it's the Tao. It's just to exist. Yeah. It's to be aware of your environment. To be aware of the people that you're in. Establish a direct communication line between you, your environment, and your God. Now, they don't necessarily believe in God, but they do have a belief system that they want to be connected to. And that allowed me to truly build a connection with the higher power of my understanding. And it allowed me, when I was, after 5.5 years of the abuse, crazy shit happening, being sent all over the world to do very unkind things, to completely bend my morality levels, you know, and just, I would fall back to those moments when I was able to just exist in a moment, away from everything, but being in the middle of everything. And it allowed me to establish a method to eliminate confusion and work my way up through confusion into like more of like a state of, you know, normality.
Yeah.
and
you were grounded in your
I had
spirit.
to go within.
Yeah.
Now I wasn't going within for their purpose. I was going within for like my meditative practice and in the spiritual and religious books that I was reading and participating in on my days off, and as I was outside of that organization, and allowed me to meet people where they are. And those teachings directly correlate with this. Just exist. Be in the present. If you don't acknowledge that, then are you alive? You do. You're here. Like everything else that you have going on is irrelevant.
Right.
The only thing that matters is now.
And that consciousness of
Correct.
I am now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a mantra that I've practiced for a very long time. It's something I still use to this day when I feel myself going outside of myself. When I feel myself getting confused or anxiety ridden. When I'm sitting in a meeting and I have really bad sensory issues going on, that's the mantra that I chant in my head.
I am now.
I am now.
Okay.
I am now. Because then it allows me to control my environment. I know I'm the one that's causing the effect within me.
Yeah.
It's not the room, it's not the people. It's my experiences at some point in my life or past lives are now existing in this exact moment, and I need to feel that this is part of my existence. Where you may believe yourself out of harmony with life and its internal now, but you cannot be, for you are life and exist now. Otherwise, you would not be here. If I wasn't supposed to feel that, I wouldn't be there. I wouldn't continue to return to that meeting. I wouldn't have taken a commitment at that meeting. And every meeting, it's gotten better. Now, it's been almost a year that's been happening at a very specific meeting, but it happens at almost everywhere that I go, just at different levels. And when I feel that, that's the mantra I chant, I am now. Brings me right back into the moment.
So I think there's something interesting about, we were talking about the Scientology, your experience with that, and it's like you take some and you leave the rest, right? And there's obviously there's one thing that it sounds like you took, and it sounds like the rest of the stuff you left.
Not necessarily. There's a lot of good information that L. Ron Hubbard wrote.
Okay.
But the way that they choose to live their life and the targeted audience is what I couldn't get behind. I couldn't get behind the science fiction shit either. I don't believe that there's a demon lord locked in an internal prison on a different planet that's about to escape and release all of the Thetans on the earth that are controlling us and eliminate mankind. I do not think that by myself clear is eliminating the Thetans. And a Thetan is essentially the multiple personalities that we have. The pain, the fear, the depression. I'm gonna bring up some terminology that was taught to me.
Yeah.
And this was let me give a full explanation. I went to a drug and alcohol rehabilitation facility, and it was called Narconon. And Narconon taught the basics of the program were amazing, but it taught self-control. You don't need meetings, you don't need anything else. You are God. You are the control. Nothing else.
Right.
And so you start out as in book 1. There's a series of 8 books that you have to accomplish to complete the program. In book 1's training routines, and it teaches you to be. You do the training routines. You learn how to communicate. There's communication drills that are part of the training routines. There's control drills that you work with a partner that's called your twin, and you work together throughout this whole book. Then the second program is their New Life Detoxification. The second book of the program is that it. The second book of the program is the New Life Detoxification program, and this is the sauna program, and this is where a lot of discrepancies came from the world, medical professionals.
Okay.
Where we would sit in a sauna for 5 hours a day and take niacin. And you'd start out at 100 milligrams and work your way up to 5,000 milligrams. Now, if you don't know what niacin does, you take niacin and it causes a physical reaction because it's opening the vessels in the fat cells within your body and it's releasing toxins. It's a very good vitamin, but it's meant to be in very small dosages.
Okay.
It's something that you take along with like a pre-workout or a creatine to open up so the body can accept everything. What it does is it essentially wipes everything out and opens everything. So your body experiences itchiness, redness, prickly feelings. It's like you have a sunburn. And you go in the sauna and the heat will actually eliminate that reaction. But you stay in the sauna till the reaction is gone. So at 100 milligrams, it's maybe like 5-10 minutes of a reaction. It comes, it goes. And then the next day you take it again, you don't have a reaction. So after 2 days, you move up to 200 milligrams and so on and so forth, all the way up to 5,000 milligrams. Now, I grew up next to Los Alamos National Laboratory and I was exposed to a ton of radiation. It exposes radiation, it exposes old sunburn. So when I was like 10 years old, I was at Lake Superior with my family for a family reunion, and I was laying on the beach and I fell asleep and I had my hands like this on my stomach.
Okay.
And I got sunburned to shit. And I had my handprints.
Yeah.
Right? Now I'm fucking 19 at this facility and that sunburn comes up.
That's insane.
So it made sense to me that what was happening, like I had to reject that sun radioactive ability in me, that sun radiation, let me put it that way.
Yeah.
And then it exposed injuries. I had knee surgeries, and one day like I felt the exact same pain that I felt when I buckled my knee and had a torn ACL, PCL, and LCL. Like I felt that exact pain, and after an hour, it was gone, and my knee felt better from there on out. So there was a lot of stuff like that, but the sauna program also caused a lot of damage.
I bet.
No one's supposed to take that much niacin. I was in the sauna program for 91 days. 3 months of my existence, every single day, 5 hours a day in the sauna. I felt good. I was sleeping better, but you take the niacin and you take a whole bunch of vitamins. You take their CalMag, which is like their Kool-Aid. They say don't drink the Kool-Aid, don't drink their calcium, magnesium, and drink 1, it tastes like shit. 2, it makes you shit your brains out and clear everything out. It's a detox drink, essentially. But it's fucking terrible. And then after that program, after 91 days, I went into book 3, which was a learning improvement course. It just taught me how to learn. It was very quick. I finished it in like a few hours because I know how to learn.
Good for you.
Like I read books. You know what I mean? But it was like very specific things. Like it taught you how to clear a word. It gave you 7 steps to clear a word so you have a full understanding of that word, which I still use to this day. When I'm reading something and I come across a word that I don't know what it means, or I don't understand it in that context, or even when I'm reading and I stumble across a word, I'll go and look that word up, and I use the 7 steps. I look up the definition, the derivation, any idioms, synonyms. I write sentences with it so I have a full understanding and application of that word.
Nice.
Like that's what they taught. It was like really good.
Okay.
That's super good stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's effective. I'm 19 years old. I might be going to college. I might be using this stuff. Like that was great. Book 4 was broken into 2 pieces, 4A, 4B. Now, that's book 1 on steroids. 4A is you move up to a 2-hour eyes closed, 2-hour eyes open.
Yeah.
There's also these other drills that establish communication. One of them's bull baiting, which is you basically have somebody, you're sitting here completely motionless, and someone is talking complete shit to you, making fun of you, bringing up your deepest, darkest things, and it's supposed to flatten out those buttons. It's used in a couple of different methods and treatment, and behavioral modification programs where they put you in the center of the room and everybody brings up your defects, essentially. And it's a very traumatizing thing.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And you just have to sit there and take it and can't move. You can't flinch. A lot of it was humor, trying to get you to laugh. They'd pull out their dick. They'd do crazy things. But then the second part, 4B, is the objectives course. Now this is where it gets a little kooky.
This is where it gets kooky?
Yeah, this is, like, before, like, yes, it did, but this is where, now...
It's a little overboard before, but now it's like...
Now, it's you and your twin. You have a twin through 4A, just like you had in book 1. Now, you're doing the objectives course. Now, this is where I literally walked around a room for 11 objectives that I don't know the answer to. I have to figure out the answer by touching objects and listening to just one command. Touch that wall. Touch that. Touch that. And I have to come up with a cognition, a sudden realization that, like, basically changed my life. There's a specific end phenomena that they're looking for, that your case manager that you never meet, you never talk to, you have no understanding. The book doesn't really give you anything but a list of commands and how to walk your twin around the room. And you have to come up with these cognitions. And it's like, we came up with some wild shit, but I literally walked around the room listening to my twin tell me to touch specific things.
Okay.
For hours. In hours. It's the whole point of it is to bring you in communication with your environment, your twin, and essentially just come to an understanding of being in the present moment, which that stuff does help at a very minor level. I think even when we first met, I gave you like a suggestion of when you feel like you're losing your consciousness and you're losing touch with reality, you just start touching objects around you, get an understanding that you're in a real world.
Yeah.
Like, that made sense to me. But for me to have to come up with a very specific set of words to move on to the next objective. Now, I was in the objectives program for 5.5 months to do 11 objectives. The last objective is I'm in between 2 tables with a book and a bottle. The book is any book that you want, and the bottle is, and my twin commands me to walk over to that bottle, pick up that bottle, what's its weight, what's its color, what's its texture, over and over and over. And in this objective, you can't stop. I didn't stop for 7 days. No food, very limited water. And I just couldn't understand it. It was the hardest objective that they had. 7 days, 24 hours a day, falling asleep, being woken up from my instructor. Like, it was physical, mental, emotional, spiritual abuse that I went through in that. And that is where, like, my spirit broke. But in those moments, when my spirit broke, I brought myself back to that I am now. Brought myself back into myself and tried to just get a basic understanding of, I don't need to listen to these people. I just need to obey what they're saying so I can finish this program.
Yeah.
That's where I kind of got. And then when I finally finished objectives, it was like, oh my God, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but you have 4 more books. You have 5, 6, 7, and 8. Book 5 talked about potential trouble sources. And this is where I was getting before I started the whole breakdown of the program and what I went through. Potential trouble source is someone that you're directly connected to that's a suppressive person. Now, a suppressive person is also what they consider a thetan. So you would be an evil entity connected to me, causing me harm. Any illness, or what is it? Something like, I had to learn patterns, word for word phrases. All illness, in greater or lesser degree, stems directly and only from a PTS condition. No matter what it is that you have, it's because you're connected to a suppressive person. Cancer, AIDS, you're dying, liver failure, a cold. So when we would get sick, if you complained about any type of illness, food poisoning, you had to go and do an ethics interview. This is where you go down to the disciplinary. and they try to find out what you did wrong, who you're connected to that's breaking the rules, and it was their ability to really bully us.
Yeah.
Into ratting on each other, essentially. That book was full of shit for me. I got it, I understood it, whatever. I didn't put much attention on that. I know that if I'm connected to a negative person, disconnect. If my parents aren't treating me well, and I'm going to have an actual conversation with them, I'm making amends, because I got to clean up my side of the street. This was blaming everybody else for your problems. And all of a sudden, magically, you would be better. Cancer would be relieved. You wouldn't die. You would live an eternal life. Book 6 was writing overts and withholds. So this is like the equivalent of like a fourth and the sixth step mixed together.
Okay, gotcha.
I wrote down all of the bad things that I've done in all 8 dynamics of my life. I learned about the dynamics of life, which were kind of cool. Self, family, groups, meaning like your friends, your associates, works, social, mankind, the entire world, animals, everything that's not a human, matter, energy, space, and time. So like your bills, your home, the physical things that are around you.
Gotcha.
7 was infinity, or no, it's I forget the name of it, but it's essentially like your spiritual beliefs.
Okay.
And then 8 was infinity, which was that just whatever existence of all time.
Okay.
And you wrote that overts and withholds on each and every dynamic. And again, this is where your case manager would say, okay, you're done. Move on to the second dynamic. First dynamic was like all the times that I used drugs, all the things I did to harm myself. Second dynamic, I wrote all the things I did to harm my family, and then my friends, and then animals, and so on and so forth, all the way throughout. And that was a very relieving process.
Yeah.
It's very, I wrote thousands of pages of things. But what it was is that there's a time, place, form, event format. So I had to write the time. So as an example, May 1998, I was the first time I cut myself. So then the over time, place, that would be Pawaka, New Mexico, where I grew up, or at school. I was at Pawaka Elementary, and then I would write the exact detailed word for word, as close as you can get to relive that experience. So I had to like go back into my 3rd grade mind of when I took the expo knife from my teacher and started to cut my legs, and relive that. And I had to like go into the moment. It took me all the way into the moment of like sitting in the library, hiding with my pants rolled up, cutting myself, the feelings that it elicited, the remorse, the relief, everything. And then the event was what exactly happened after that. I pulled down my pant legs and I went back to class. I didn't tell anybody anything. I had to do that for every single time that I did that I could remember. So I relived my entire life. But at the end of it, I had a complete relief. It's like I had let go of all of those things, but they didn't teach me how to maintain that.
Yeah, I think having that really, those specific requirements to get as detailed as possible about the time and the place, was that beneficial to that process, or was that detrimental? Because to me, it almost feels like the obligation or requirement to get the details is like, shit, I don't know.
Sometimes, for specific actions, it was beneficial. For a vast majority of it, especially on those early dynamics, myself, my family, my friends.
Okay.
Reliving those moments completely, shattered my winning streak. I'd been clean for like 9 months at that time. You know what I mean? And I felt just like such a piece of shit. That my past was always going to be with me. And reliving those, it re-stimulated and made me feel the exact same way as I felt in those moments of cutting myself, doing the first drugs, being beat, being raped, all of those things. Like I relived those moments, and it took years for me to stop feeling that emotion from what writing like that elicited in me.
Yeah.
but then some of the things I was able to let go of.
Okay.
So it was like kind of hit or miss. I was young, I was stubborn, so I just didn't talk about it. I meditated a lot to try to get past it, but my meditations turned into just reliving those experiences for a long time. And it wasn't until I reached out for help from other spiritual sources to kind of eliminate the work that the Scientologists had done on me.
So my experience with trauma, and again, this is my experience, is that reliving and processing that stuff is a valuable process, but at a certain point, the end goal is like detachment from these experiences, right?
Correct.
Because something happened, and then now years later, this thing that's happened in my life is now having such a profound impact on my personality, on my life, on the things that I feel like I'm able to do, on my relationships, and
it takes you out of the now.
It takes you out of the now, yeah.
So
and these flies take me out of the now.
Fly,
this fly really likes me.
Hi, how's it going? What's up, bud? Yeah, and then that's exactly it. That program, the last 2 books are Changing Conditions in Life, How to Move Up in Life, Become Affluent, Become a Place of Power. The last book was Super Easy, it was A Way to Happiness. It was a book that L. Ron Hubbard wrote about 21 precepts to living a happy life.
Mm-hmm.
All bullshit.
Okay.
Very cookie cutter stuff.
Okay. White picket fence.
Correct.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And it was really just like an introduction to how to become clear. Now that doing those books allowed me, I was on the bridge to being clear. So I had been unknowingly, I had been inducted into Scientology.
Mm-hmm.
I had been doing the things that someone who wanted to become a Scientologist would do in their beginning stages of being a Scientologist.
Yeah.
Now I took a job with these people. I had to get trained by them to work in different positions throughout the organization. Each point, like I listened to lectures by L. Ron Hubbard that were fucking insane, to become a course supervisor, to teach those 8 books, to run the objectives course. I was labeled as the best objective supervisor that Narconon had ever had, because I just knew how to deal with people, and I just told people the fucking answers. Hey, write this down. This is fucking stupid. Just get through this. So the student body, which they called us students, they didn't call us patients. The students loved me for being honest. That's how I got through to them. Was, hey, you can take what you want from this. Leave the rest of this bullshit.
Yeah.
It's a whole bunch of irrelevant fucking nonsense, but there is some good stuff, and we'll talk about just real life shit. Let's get through this whole fucking program and get you into your life and go into a 12-step fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what I promoted for 5.5 years. But I moved up within the organization. I became an executive director of a facility. I had lawsuits against me. I got completely deeply involved with the Church of Scientology, met a whole bunch of Scientologists, met David Miscavige. I was locked into the center up in Hemet, California, for breaking rules. And after I got out of their like essential jail, I packed up my car in the middle of the night and left, and I had ethics officers chasing me for multiple years. I still have people showing up to my childhood home that my family does not own anymore, but a family friend owns.
Mm-hmm.
They come knock on that door because that's the address that they have. I get phone calls from them. I'm harassed completely. I've never exposed or gone this in depth in any type of like public matter about it, but I do feel that it's time, because it directly relates to what we're talking about. Talking about, you know, through what Alan Watts is doing. It was a wild experience in my life, but I did learn a lot from it. It taught me the person I didn't want to be. I didn't want to become a money-hungry pup, you know, prey on the weak, take over third world countries and promise them the world and have them live in shit conditions and blah, 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 blah. You can read about Scientology and what they do and the crazy shit that happens if you want. Maybe I'll go more in depth in later episodes and various things like that, but that's a brief synopsis of my induction into Scientology. But where it all came down to is that basic premise of be.
Mm-hmm.
to exist, to know that I exist, and to know my worth and purpose in my life.
Yeah.
The Tao.
I think there's a lot of, in the religions of the world, a lot of the sort of concept of take what you want and leave the rest.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of...
That's how I live my life.
Right. That's the same in my understanding of those spiritual...
I'm not religious. I'm spiritual because of that.
Yeah. You've had experience with
I've dabbled
the
in
institution.
Institution of Catholicism, Scientology,
Yeah.
Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, to eliminate the ability to freely be who I want to be and take what I want from each and every one of those, organized religions is much more uplifting to me. And now I just read a study and listened to a woman, a PhD out of Columbia's teaching master's university, and she has literally you can become a spiritual master. You can get a master's degree in spirituality,
Cool.
which is super rad. But what she was talking about is the people who acknowledge that they are spiritual have true awakenings. The people who acknowledge that they're religious, purely religious, they don't acknowledge the spirit, are closed. So I want to be awakened. I want to access that crocodile brain through my consciousness.
Yeah.
I want to be able to control my body temperature. This is what happens through being in the now.
Yeah.
From meditating, from breath work practices, from doing physical yoga, from learning and experiencing what this world has to offer and giving back to this world. Everything, what we're doing here today on this podcast and what we're going to continue to do is be of service. The selfless service to disseminate knowledge from very intelligent people and give our interpretations and our feelings and our life and our stories and our experiences. That's being of service. Someone else out there might completely resonate with this.
Yeah.
Some other person might have gotten an arc on one of the other facilities like, fuck, dude, I went through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of people like that out there.
Yeah.
I've ran into a few of them in the rooms. I'm like, dude, fuck, that's what we went through. I'm glad you made it out. There's a lot of people who died there.
Okay.
Overdoses, misappropriation of things, just random shit. Disappearances.
Okay.
Man, it was wild. We'll talk more about that in later points.
Yeah.
To summarize what we've read, to do this move in time with life, to be perfect, to be in perfect accord with its changing music, and this is called enlightenment. In short, it is to be detached from both past and future and live in the eternal now.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I try to strive for every single day. Detached from what's already happened. I got nothing. There's nothing I can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm worried about the future, there's nothing I can do to control it. It's not here yet.
Yeah.
But I can do that in the now. In this moment, right here, right now. Not at the beginning of this episode, not 5 seconds ago, but in this exact moment in time.
Yeah.
This is all I have. And that's a beautiful awakening. That enlightenment, the ability to just say, hey, in the now.
Yeah.
Eliminate all your worries. Because this is it. This is all I'm promised. Is right now. And luckily I'm making it second by second through the remainder of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Until there is no more now.
Yeah.
Alright. What do you got?
I think there's kind of a paradox here.
Yeah.
We're talking about the past and the future, and there's this seemingly fine line to me between attachment and detachment to the past and the future, because as it says here, like, those thoughts of the past and of the future are of the moment.
Correct.
And so if I have memories that come up and nostalgia or whatever, these things bring me joy, like, that joy exists in the moment.
It does. The feeling that you have.
Yeah.
It's the actual thing that's happening now that spawns from those things. But by being detached from those things, you allow them to come in their time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't force them up. You don't try to dig in your memory bank and pull up specific memories to elicit specific feelings, because that is addiction at its finest.
Yeah. Okay.
You allow it to just come. When you walk in a room and it's like all of a sudden it feels like you've been there because you've been in a similar situation, you have a good memory in that environment and it reflects now. That's a natural occurrence of your past influencing the now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just feeling, it's going within, and what is that eliciting right now? That's the point.
Yeah.
To be detached, but to allow it to come, because they are a part of now, because they elicit physical reactions, they elicit mental reactions, spiritual reactions, but it's just acknowledging what that reaction is, not acknowledging what ignited that in going deeper this way, going deeper into the past to try to get more.
Right.
One is too many, and 1,000 is never enough.
Yeah.
This is nostalgia. This is joy created by a memory. This is not the actual memory.
This is not the memory.
Right.
This is what's happening now.
Yeah. And then as far as the future goes, you know, an equivalent that I can kind of come up with would be, you know, hope, inspiration for the future, inspiration to pursue certain goals, right? It's like that motivates me in the present, and it makes me want to put in the work, but the reality is at a certain point I don't have control over that result.
Nope.
And so in the now, in this moment, what I'm feeling is inspiration, it's motivation, it's hope. It's not, you know, success, it's not, you know, completion of a goal. It's
just to exist.
Right. And there's kind of a fine line in between there, and I think that acknowledging that fine line and detaching yourself, which is kind of what starts off this chapter, is going to allow you know, more openness to experience.
Absolutely.
More joy.
We'd just like to give what I just talked about, that whole breakdown of what I went through. It elicited feelings. I acknowledged those feelings.
Yeah.
I took the ones that I wanted and I left the rest in the past. But I allowed it to create an emotional, intimate connection to this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that in the future, those things are going to come up again. And what I just did right now is what I'll do then. And that's where I can use the past to influence the future by using the now.
Yeah.
The future is created from what we've done because it's what we're working towards. So we have a general idea of what's going to happen. Like I have a good idea of what's going to happen tomorrow, but I can't exactly say 100% that's what's going to happen. But I have a feeling it's going to be very close to what I did today. And then there'll be some variation of differences. But if I'm just living moment by moment, I'm not worrying about tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm worrying about the completion of, like, I'll shorten it to the completion of this episode. Once I know this episode, to make it home, to eat some food. And just keep shortening it and shortening it and shortening it and shortening it. And then I go into my meditation practice and then I go to sleep. Like, I have a pretty good idea. That's my plan for the next couple hours.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't guarantee that all of that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'm going to use my past to give me a pretty good judgment call. I was like, it's probably going to happen.
Right. And if, say, for example, that stuff doesn't happen,
it's okay.
Right, and that's what detachment looks like.
Correct.
Right?
It's all right.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't, I'm supposed to be here now. I'm supposed to be feeling this feeling right now.
Mm-hmm.
This moment is supposed to be happening. So I'm going to let go of everything else and allow the moment to exist.
Yeah. Or if, you know, I come up with a preconceived notion about what should be later on and then it doesn't happen that way, and then I'm in this moment where I'm like, no, I should be somewhere else. I'm supposed to be, you know, wherever. It's like that's our self, our ego, the stuff we talked about last episode,
the ego
generating a situation
the ego
that takes us out
establish the
now.
fear that removes us from the now and doesn't allow us to adapt and be comfortable in every setting that we're in, because we're attributing it to somewhere else that should have happened that didn't happen, or something that has already happened, and that's just fear. And fear is based in ego. And ego is the fucking demise of all.
Yeah. I am now.
I am now. That's it.
That's it. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, guys. Like, subscribe, follow.